the voice of Long Beach, the one and only, Halftime, Howie! First day of December.
Yes.
It is that time of the show, we call it
Around the Movie Block with The Rock.
And I had the pleasure of going to a movie in Long Beach with the icon Howie Riesenberg, Rocco Pasafume, and we saw A Wonderful Day in the Neighborhood.
Yes.
And to tell us more about it, here is Rocco Pasafume.
Thank you very much, Howie. Yes, we saw It's a Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood. It is directed by Marielle Heller and it stars Tom Hanks and Matthew Rhys. It takes place in 1998, where Lloyd Vogel, played by Rhys, is an award-winning Esquire journalist who interviews Presbyterian minister turned host of the PBS children's educational program, Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood, Fred Rogers, played by Hanks. Throughout the story, Vogel attempts to expose Mr. Rogers as just a mere act on television while dealing with his own troubled relationship with his father, Jerry, played by Chris Cooper. The one thing I noticed about this movie right away is that it wisely eschews the typical style that we've seen in dramas the last couple of years. Usually, the biopic formula has become very, very hot in Hollywood. And we've seen that with movies like Bohemian Rhapsody and Rocket Man and things like that. But what I liked about this is that it takes a risk, and it does a movie that we haven't seen too much of now on the big screen, which is a fictional drama. Yes, even though it's inspired by the magazine article, it's centered around a fictional character. It's a fictionalized version of the author. And what makes this interesting as a movie is that a lot of the movie really rests on the shoulders of not only the fictional story, but the actor who's playing him, which is Matthew Rhys, who's an Emmy Award-winning actor. He won for a series on FX called The Americans. He played a character named Philip Jennings. He was a KGB spy who was posing as American. And, that's a more risky proposition than you would normally have for most Hollywood movies today, where it's sort of predetermined how people are going to enjoy the movie. And I have to say, over the course of the movie, I really felt that the story of this fictional character, this guy who's dealing with, this very dysfunctional family and dealing with so much, a lot going on with him as a result of that, a lot of it really rests on the character being credible, and I feel very much that the character is credible, and the actor who plays him, Matthew Rhys, does a very good job of capturing that believability and that kind of pain that really a lot of us go through. I mean, I think in many ways this was the perfect way to make a movie about Mr. Rogers, because it's told from the center point of somebody who not really was a fan of the program. Many people felt that, many people had a very cynical attitude in regards to Mr. Rogers. They felt like he was a little kind of hokey and a little too quaint for the kind of brutal modern world that we live in today. And I also thought it was a great companion piece to the documentary that was made about Mr. Rogers. They made a documentary about Fred Rogers some time ago, not that long ago, called Won't You Be My Neighbor? And that is a more in-depth, telling of his life story. And I think that in many ways having the two be separated works perfectly, because you have a documentary that tells his life story, but it's free from sort of the added drama that is normally necessary for a fictional kind of play kind of movie. And I think that having this centered around, a character that's more representational of us as the audience, I think works better for this kind of movie. And I feel very, very much that this makes for a much more interesting movie. And it's a really good movie. I feel like it's definitely one of the more uplifting, more genuinely uplifting movies that we've seen in some time. It's come out in Hollywood in the theaters. So I really do feel that, it's definitely a more challenging and more, it's a bigger testament to the life and work of Fred Rogers than what we would have gotten if it was just been, like, say, rather, predictable biopic about, his life and how he got to where he was. And of course, Mr. Rogers was fantastic. The actor Tom Hanks playing him, he really captures, Mr. Rogers in everything that made this guy so wonderful. And I think that by positioning him as sort of a mentor character in the movie, it serves Mr. Rogers' legacy a lot better than would have been if he was the central dramatic character of the movie. So I think this is really a testament to a really creative kind of story centered around his life, and I think that most people will feel very much like the story of the reporter character, Lloyd Vogel, is going to be very relatable to a lot of people. Matthew Rhys does a very good job of capturing that on the screen, and just watching the bond between Rhys's character and Mr. Rogers, played by Tom Hanks, you really feel like you get a real sense of what an interaction with Mr. Rogers would have been like if it had been me or any of you out there, or Howie. We all can it's a great vehicle for kind of putting ourselves, with all our adult flaws and all that, into the shoes of somebody meeting a truly unique and kind of really idiosyncratic person like Mr. Rogers. So is there anything that you want to add to that I haven't touched on?
No, I just think it was a wonderful story how Mr. Rogers in this movie took a man that had a tremendous amount of anger towards his father, and through Mr. Rogers' kindness and bond, he was able to take that anger and be forgiving of his father, and showed love for his father, and took an angry human being and turned him into a nice, compassionate person. And it showed the impact that Mr. Rogers had on not only children but adults as well. So it was really an uplifting way of showing Mr. Rogers, and I really love that aspect of how Mr. Rogers took this guy under his wing, who was so angry at the beginning, and turned him around. It was really wonderful to see, and I think they did a wonderful job in this movie.
Yes, no, totally. I definitely feel like this is definitely the kind of Mr. Rogers story on film that I think is totally worthy of his legacy, and I think that everybody, all the actors and the director, did a fantastic job really bringing this to life. And it really shows that sometimes you can't always go with the predictable route. You need to sometimes take risks and kind of be creative, behind the camera and on paper with a script, and really show that, that you can create something out of something very familiar, but really do it in a way that really is testament to the person's life without having to directly be associated and centered around the person's life. So I definitely enjoyed Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood. I think it's a very uplifting movie. People will love it. And I definitely give it 4 out of 5 stars. Thank you.
Okay, great job, Rocco. A Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood, reviewed by Rocco Pasafume. Time to wrap up our show, and today was really a special show. It started off with Harvey Riesenberg collaborating with the Island Park Fire Department, and I think you all will be touched by that joint interview. It's the firefighters hold a special place in Harvey's heart, and just having them talk about the great work they do in the community was really uplifting. Rocco's review of A Wonderful Day in the Neighborhood movie with Tom Hanks was great. Definitely enjoyed that movie, and I urge everyone to see it. And Harvey Riesenberg, the perspective about what to be thankful for was really touching. Harvey being so touched by his special needs son. And I just want to add that as we celebrate Thanksgiving, I just feel that we really have a lot to be thankful for. First of all, we should all be thankful for our families and the love we get from our families, the support and enrichment we get from our friends who make our life better, and just be grateful for most importantly for your health and life in general. Life is a gift, and I think you should never take life for granted. And around the holiday time where we get together with friends and family, I think it's time to reflect on that we live in a free society, in a great country. And when we get together with so many friends and family for Thanksgiving, it really brings it all home, how fortunate, how thankful we should be. And I think it's something that you shouldn't take for granted, that you do have your health, and you do have the love and support by loved ones. And as we move forward to the holidays with Hanukkah and Christmas, it's just a time to reflect and say that my life, instead of looking up, sometimes you can look down and just be grateful. As we enter the holiday season, as we're in the holiday season, be grateful and be thankful for your health, for your friends, for your family, for your life, for your community. And I always say, try to live life with a positive attitude and try to make a difference in this world in a positive way. And that's my message during Thanksgiving. And with that, I wrap with this. My name is Halftime. I want to thank you for your time. Please join us next Sunday for another edition of Halftime. But at this time, we're out of time. See you next Sunday.